Some stories just make me wonder, is this the world's worst criminal? Happy Friday. It's me, John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me today for this special episode. We're taking a little bit of a side trip, but don't worry, Brain Scratch will be back in full force next week. Now, yesterday we celebrated Halloween, where people dress up as their favorite characters, sometimes even as our favorite monsters from movies, but it's all in safe fun. Unfortunately, there are many people in this world affected by real monsters. Monsters that somehow just completely lose touch with their own humanity and they become something else. Now, over the past several months, we've started looking into these dark stories on both the Lorden Arts Facebook page and my second channel here on YouTube, Studio 2, in a new show that I call World's Worst Criminals. Now, fortunately, most of these stories are also bringing you the justice of these monsters. And today we're going to bring you 3 of those stories and ask you, who do you think is the worst of this group? There is one type of true crime case that is really difficult to talk about, and that's when the unthinkable happens to the most innocent of lives, the lives of children. Kaylee Jade Priest was an adorable little girl. The 3-year-old angel with her big and bright blue eyes was described as a happy child, and that's despite the atrocities she was facing at home. No child should be subjected to abuse, especially from the people that are supposed to care about us the most. On August 9th, 2020, Kaylee Jade was found dead at the apartment she lived in with her mother in Solihull, West Midlands, England. It was clear she had been the victim of severe physical harm. She had several abdominal injuries, including fractured ribs and fatal chest trauma, a punctured lung. Experts stated that her wounds were similar to a child being hit by a car driving 40 miles per hour or someone falling 3 stories and landing on a concrete surface. The immense physical pain that Kaylee Jade must have endured is unimaginable, but to think that this brutal attack was coming from someone you love dearly makes it all that much worse. The day before, Kaylee Jade was seen in an elevator with her mother, 23-year-old Nicola Priest. The little girl was standing in a corner, seemingly being totally ignored by her mother, who was checking herself out in the mirror, adjusting her top. No physical contact, not even a glance back to be sure that her young daughter safely exited the elevator. Some might think that a moment like this is insignificant at first glance, but knowing that this little girl would be dead the following day, it's hard to not feel some anger towards Nicola. She seems so much more concerned about herself than Kaylee Jade. While it might make you wonder about her parenting, how does that connect with what happened later that night? What led Nicola to kill her own daughter? Or was someone else responsible? According to the evidence, the assault on Kaylee Jade happened later that day, August 8th, 2020, sometime between 5 and 8 p.m. in the family home. 22-year-old Colin Redfern, a former boyfriend of Nicola Priest's, had come over that afternoon, and it seemed the adults were looking forward to Kaylee Jade's bedtime. Kaylee Jade had her dinner, chicken nuggets and chips, and at 7 p.m. she was supposed to go to bed, giving Nicola and Colin their free time to go into Nicola's bedroom and be intimate. But Kaylee Jade didn't want to sleep. The 3-year-old just wanted to stay up and play. This seemingly angered the adults in the home, and this is where things get difficult to understand. During the trial, Judge Foxton noted that there was no direct evidence of what exactly happened next. Medical and forensics examinations revealed that Kaylee Jade vomited repeatedly, the result of a severe beating. The acuteness of the injuries also showed that it was clear that the attackers both had a strong intent to cause serious bodily harm to the child. The authorities stated that Kaylee Jade's injuries were treatable and even survivable, but only if medical intervention had been provided immediately after that assault. It appears that the 3-year-old likely suffered for hours before succumbing to her injuries sometime around midnight. Nicola called the authorities, screaming and crying when she went into her daughter's room around 11 a.m. the following morning. She told the jury that she found Kaylee Jade stiff and not moving, with purple lips. She attempted to do CPR on her, but, quote, knew she wasn't coming back, and kept telling the dispatcher, she's gone. But the little girl's horrific death actually hid even darker secrets. It wasn't just one sudden act of violence that she had experienced. Kaylee Jade had faced prolonged abuse and neglect. Medical examinations showed she had also suffered historical injuries, such as broken ribs, leg fractures, and even a broken sternum. The horrors faced by this little girl were now coming to light. She was being abused by her mother, with some witnesses stating that Nicola used to call her an effing brat, always telling her to shut up, go away, or leave her alone. No one could really recall Nicola being positive or kind to her own child. Her daughter was heard numerous times crying in fear. Neighbors noticed that whenever Kaylee Jade would cry, Nicola would drown out the noise with loud music. One day, a neighbor heard a big thump, and then Kaylee Jade crying heavily. They could hear Nicola say, "I'll say she fell off the bed." Even more chilling, in a text message exchange on July 24th, 2020, just a few days before Kaylee Jade's death, Priest told her boyfriend, Redfern, "I'm going to kill her. I've hit her once and smacked her for dirtying her nappy." The man then replied, "Good, give her one from me," to which the mother agreed. However, in the weeks following Kaylee Jade's death, Nicola Priest posted several videos on TikTok. She was sharing footage and images of her and her daughter cuddling with each other with captions like "RIP my baby," and making comments about the fact that she will never forget her darling, her angel. But among those videos were others. Soon, there were also videos where Nicola was dancing around the apartment, miming songs, and doing what a lot of people do on TikTok. Well, people who hadn't recently lost a child. Those dancing videos were uploaded just 45 days after Kaylee Jade died of child abuse. The TikTok account, as well as the CCTV footage of Nicola Priest with Kaylee Jade in the elevator, were used in court to highlight her obsession with social media and her phone. She would be described as selfie-obsessed by the media covering the case. The trial was hard for everyone. The pathologist in charge of the case noted a total of 68 injuries, from bruising to red marks and abrasions. Some of the jurors were reduced to tears while listening to the terrible details of Kaylee Jade's assault. A pediatrician said the injuries were among the worst that he had ever seen in 30 years. Nicola Priest was found guilty of child cruelty and manslaughter in August of 2021. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Colin Redfern was also convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 14 years. Kaylee Jade's grandmother would speak to the press after the conviction, saying, "Everybody deserves the gift of life. Kaylee Jade deserved to show the world who she could have been and what greatness she could have brought to this world. Nanny will forever hold you in her heart." Security systems are all around us to help us feel safe. But do they actually work in preventing crime? In October of 2015, several security systems would be tested, with one showing a critical flaw and a young woman's life being senselessly taken. Sasha Samsudeen was a vibrant 27-year-old with a contagious smile. She worked for an online real estate company and described herself as the Cupid of apartment hunting. Her bio even noted, "It's really easy for me to match renters with their perfect home." Sasha thought she had done the same for herself, picking out her home at the Uptown Place condominiums in downtown Orlando, Florida. The complex boasted numerous security features that could help ease the mind of a young woman who was living alone. Video cameras monitored the entrances and exits 24 hours a day. Digital locks were featured on each individual unit, tracking entrances and exits, and there was even a security guard on site. She had gone out with some of her friends to enjoy some drinks, and after visiting several bars and clubs, she walked back to her apartment. She was last seen on surveillance footage around 1:45 a.m. entering the lobby. Unfortunately, there were no cameras filming the hallway where the door to her unit actually was. a detail that might have been noticed by the person who took her life. Sasha was supposed to have breakfast with a friend the following morning, but she didn't show up. Being someone very active on social media, her friends reached out to her, but they got no response at all. 3 of her friends decided to go to Sasha's home and check on her, and that's when they saw the first signs of concern. They noticed Sasha's vehicle was at the complex, and a gift that she was supposed to bring to a baby shower scheduled later that day was sitting inside the car. With there being no answer from her when they tried her unit, one of the friends, a man named Anthony Roper, decided it was time to call the police. Officers arrived and arranged with the landlord to enter Sasha's unit. As soon as they walked in, the police officers noticed the strong scent of bleach. By first appearances, nothing else seemed out of place, except for the toilet seat being up. A bit strange for the home of a single woman. They entered her bedroom and noticed a tuft of hair sticking out from under her blankets. They pulled back the covers to find Sasha's lifeless body. A later medical examination would discover severe trauma on several parts of her body, including signs of physical restraint and the most severe neck fracture that the medical examiner had ever seen on a victim. Sasha's clothes were reportedly torn, her pants and underwear missing. Also missing were Sasha's keys, her purse, and her phone. The violence had been seemingly contained to her bed, and an important question was raised. With no signs of forced entry, how did the perpetrator get inside? Did Sasha know her assailant? Did she possibly bring someone home that night? The crime scene analysts would be brought in and discovered several clues that would help bring the case into focus, starting with that out-of-position toilet seat. They found fingerprints underneath the toilet seat lid, as well as partial shoe prints that were found in the condo. After additional medical analysis, foreign DNA was also found on Sasha's chest. Investigators requested the security footage, which would take a little time to be captured and provided to them. In the meantime, officers questioned anyone who had encountered Sasha that night. They spoke with the security guard on duty, a man named Stephen Duxbury. He told the investigators that he had interacted with Sasha and 2 other women at the entrance of the building. He said that he couldn't grant her access because she had no ID or key card on her. Sasha wound up following another resident in a few moments later. The individuals mentioned by Duxbury were located. The man that she followed told the officers that Sasha looked pretty drunk that night. The 2 women who had seen her walking along the street stated that they were concerned for her safety. They offered Sasha a ride home and escorted her back to the building, assuming that she was safe in the presence of that security guard. But another witness came forward with a baffling piece of testimony. He saw Sasha in the hallway that night, and she was being followed by none other than Stephen Duxbury. The security footage was finally ready for review, and investigators soon learned that it just wasn't matching the security guard's statement. The footage showed Sasha arriving at 1:46 a.m. on the morning of October 17th. She wandered the exterior floors and stairways of the building. It's theorized that she was having trouble finding her unit. She was also unaware that for nearly 40 minutes, Duxbury was following her, using his own key to pass through several locked access doors. 5 hours later, he was again captured on footage, carrying white garbage bags from a doorway that led to the second-floor garage where his car happened to be parked. The investigators knew something was wrong. They had found the same type of bags in Sasha's apartment, and garbage collection was not part of the security guard's responsibilities. The authorities quickly obtained a search warrant for his home and phone and discovered that Duxbury did a strange online search on his smartphone's browser at 5 a.m. the day of the murder. He had searched for how to override a digital deadbolt lock, similar to the type on Sasha's front door. If that wasn't enough, Duxbury had scrapes and a bite mark on his arm. The soles of his shoes matched those partial prints found in the apartment. The DNA was a match. Those fingerprints on the toilet seat, they were his. He agreed to take a polygraph test, and he failed. Stephen Duxbury was arrested on October 30th, 2015. Further investigation showed that Duxbury didn't have any convicted criminal history, at least in Florida, but he was the subject of numerous resident complaints from Uptown Place. A few months before Sasha's assault, another young female resident had reported that he was acting sketchy after he also followed her back to her apartment. During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case outlining how the suspect exploited his role as a security guard to gain Sasha's trust and access to her apartment. Stephen Duxbury was found guilty of first-degree murder and additional charges on November 21st, 2017. He received 2 life sentences without parole for Sasha's murder and an additional 15 years for burglary. The one security system that can actually help intervene and stop crime is the human security guard. Duxbury's job was to make sure that every resident in the building was safe. He was in a trusted position. But when he saw an opportunity in Sasha's vulnerable state, he exploited it. Thankfully, he will never do this again. And Sasha Samsudeen's tragic story will help inform other residents and hopefully landlords to be cautious of who we trust to protect us. A simple traffic stop uncovers numerous secrets and turns into a nightmare for several families, reminding us all about the risks that our children face every day, even when they're sitting right next to us. "Sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous," said the driver when he was pulled over. 41-year-old Jeremy Guthrie had some very big reasons to be nervous. What police suspected was a case of drunk driving would take a dark and unexpected turn. It was around 1 a.m. in the morning on July 22nd in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when state police on Interstate 25 spotted a pickup truck weaving in and out of the lanes. "Driving like an idiot," was the description given by one of the officers. After following for a while, they pulled the truck over. When approaching the vehicle, the officers noticed there were 6 children with the man, including a young woman in the passenger seat next to him. The officers asked Guthrie for his identification, but for some reason, the driver was struggling to find his wallet. It took almost a full minute before the officer noticed that the wallet was in plain sight and told the man, "There's your wallet, right between your legs." The officer asked about the 6 children that were traveling with Guthrie. They were literally packed into the vehicle, the girl in the passenger seat and 5 other children in the back cab. Guthrie told the police these were his friends and claimed that the girl by his side was 18 years old. Looking at the girl's young face, the officer immediately knew that that just wasn't possible. He asked Guthrie to get out of the car, and that's when he noticed that the driver's jeans were unbuttoned. Guthrie stated it was an accident, that he simply forgot to button them back up after using the bathroom, but something was not adding up here. A 41-year-old man, likely intoxicated, traveling at 1 a.m. in the morning with a group of children that he says are just his friends. Both officers were disturbed by the situation. They gave Guthrie sobriety tests, which he failed. While checking the vehicle, the state police found empty bottles of tequila and whiskey. That was enough already to arrest him, but the officers knew they had to keep digging into this case. There was clearly something more going on here. They would soon figure out that the man had given the underage children alcohol. This took his single driving under the influence charge and tacked on 6 additional charges of child abuse. But that wasn't all. The girl in the passenger seat and her twin sister, who was also in the car that night, said that they met Guthrie through Snapchat. When they were returned home the night of his arrest, they told their grandmother what was really going on. She was so upset that she called 911 to report all of Guthrie's dark secrets. He had been grooming and abusing the girls for over a year. The grandmother claimed that she didn't know about it before his arrest, but she learned that he even got one of her grandchildren pregnant when she was only 12 years old. This led to a miscarriage. The grandmother also found several lewd text messages from Guthrie on one of the girls' phones. During questioning, one of the twins revealed that she had been abused repeatedly over a lengthy period of time. She even had video of one occurrence. Guthrie would tell them that he loved them and that he was excited when one of them got pregnant. During this same period, he was also abusing another teenage girl. She would later try to take her own life. Police learned more and more secrets as they interviewed the kids. Guthrie was an avid drug user, and the girls told the authorities about all the different substances he would take and the numerous guns that he had at his home. If all this wasn't enough, after his arrest and while he was in jail, the twins' grandmother revealed that Guthrie was still contacting the girls. Investigations into this claim would find Instagram messages, some asking for money. The profile used claimed to be Jeremy Guthrie, and it appeared that they were coming from one of the guards' phones. It makes me sick. I'm livid about what he did to my granddaughters. He's just a very, very sick person, the grandmother would tell the media. Social media has brought a lot of good into our lives, but it's also a doorway for the bad. If there's another lesson to be learned here, it's that every criminal starts with a clean record. Before the discovery of his twisted life, Jeremy Guthrie had no criminal history. Thankfully, that is no longer the case. He was charged and convicted for the DUI and has pending court dates to face more charges, including 16 different counts of minor abuse. So which is it? The TikTok-obsessed mother, the apartment security guard, or the depraved driver? Thankfully, they are all now facing justice. However, we're only getting started, and honestly, there's no shortage of people for us to look into. If you'd like to see more World's Worst Criminal, be sure to follow Lord and Arts on Facebook or subscribe to our sister channel here on YouTube, Lord and Arts Studio 2. At Studio 2, you'll also find great episodes of The Best of Seriously Mysterious, Criminal Impact, Paranormal Perspective, and The Secret Studio, a weekly show where you can hang out with myself and an amazing community of Lord and Arts viewers live. Links are below, and I hope to see you there. Please join us again next week for a brand new episode of Brain Scratch right here on the Lord and Arts channel.